Things look to be trending in the right direction for New Orleans Saints quarterback Derek Carr, and reports are even saying he wants to play this weekend. But should he? We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on this In Case You Missed It episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, you can always subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss the latest episodes. And if you want to keep the conversation going, take part in our exclusive film studies, Q&As, and much more, you can head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints today to become a Locked On Saints insider and join a community I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the Media Saints News Network, Tuesdays on the Locked On NFL podcast, and here with you every single Monday through Friday, and then some on Locked On Saints. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On today's episode, it's In Case You Missed It, where we bring you all through the 5 biggest takes of the week and help you make sure you have everything that you need to know, including some updates today, heading into Sunday's matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we're going to take a look at a defense that's looking to bounce back, why the Saints should let it rip on offense with my unpopular opinion of the week. And to kick us all off, Derek Carr could start this weekend, but should he is the big question. And I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you the way that I really look at this, straight up 100%, no, hedging or anything like that. If Derek Carr says, and if the New Orleans Saints medical staff believe that he's at 100% or as close to 100% as any player can be in week 4, I could see the New Orleans Saints sending Derek Carr out on that field, regardless of the fact that they're down an offensive line, regardless of the front that they're playing up against. But is that the best choice? Well, that all comes down to whether or not he's healthy. And look, you can't make the decision based upon the number of offensive linemen that are healthy or unhealthy, or the defensive front that you're going up against. You have to make this decision entirely based upon where Derek Carr is in his recovery process. On Friday, he was throwing in practice, didn't look hampered, didn't look limited in any way. He was a limited participant in practice because he didn't take every snap over on the offensive side and took some of the snaps, but he did everything from throwing from routes on air to throwing in red zone drills. So he was very active, and that's a big level of participation. And let's be real, that's not something you probably want to hold Jameis Winston out of, because Jameis Winston has been so effective in the red zone throughout his career. Give him the red zone drills. Don't give them to the guy that's not going to play this weekend. So I think things are maybe leaning a little bit closer towards Derek Carr playing than many expect, but it's not a for sure thing. And I think the big piece that the big question that you have to ask if you're the New Orleans Saints or the big series of questions are, is Derek Carr healthy enough to go out there and play? That's first and foremost. Secondly, can he go out there and play without putting the team at risk, right? You can be good enough or healthy enough to go out and play, but are you healthy enough to go out there and do your job? Are you healthy enough to go out there and excel? Very different situation. And then the last question, of course, comes down to whether or not you feel that Jameis Winston would be the better option at 100% based upon whatever version of 100% Derek Carr is. And the only reason why I say at whatever version of 100% is because the threshold for 100% has to move throughout the season. 100% week 15 is not the same as 100% week 1, right? Like there's always going to be some piece of that gets knocked off. But I think that as long as Derek Carr can show that he's 100%, if the medical staff believes that he's 100%, the doctors have told them that there's very little risk of re-injury or anything like that. He's still more likely to hurt the arm than he was had he not hurt the arm in the first place, which is just kind of how injuries work. But if they feel that he can go out there and play, you can't make the decision based upon the offensive line. You can't make the decision based upon the defense, because then you'd have a different starting quarterback every week, right? Like if Derek Carr's 100% or as 100% as he can be week 7, but you're missing an offensive lineman, you're not going to make the decision to sit Derek Carr based on that. You have to make this decision based entirely on Derek Carr, his ability to go out there and play, his ability to go out there and excel, and his ability to go out there and win versus Jameis Winston's ability to go out there and win. Whatever you feel is going to give you the best odds to go out there and win this weekend, that's a decision that you have to make, and it's got to be based on the quarterbacks. The fact of the matter is that the Saints would be fine one way or another going up against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, but I understand the impetus for wanting to go with the guy that you built your offense around all offseason, because the New Orleans Saints haven't been able to do that for the past 2 years. For the past 2 years, they've built their offense around Jameis Winston and have not been able to have Jameis Winston on the field for the 17-game stretch to be able to execute that offense. This is yet another starting quarterback situation for the New Orleans Saints in this case. But the good news is that you'd be going to a guy that's already been in your system, that's already won in your system, and that is familiar with your weapons, that is familiar with the pieces around, that is familiar with the defense that you're about to go up against. So for the New Orleans Saints, either decision can be right. And either decision can be the one that leads you to a victory or leads you to a loss. Whatever decision is made has to be made with the idea of team success in mind, but has to be made with the criteria being the quarterback themselves, Derek Carr himself, and the addition, of course, of Alvin Kamara and how that can help alleviate some of the pressure for a quarterback and an offensive line as well. And I think what we know for sure right now is that Derek Carr wants to play, right? Nick Underhill over at New Orleans Football tweeting out this morning that, or sharing this morning, that Derek Carr wants to play, that he wants to be out there, but that he's going to be a true Sunday game time decision, which is exactly what we should expect. And even if the New Orleans Saints actually know right now on Saturday that Derek Carr is their starter or that Jameis Winston is their starter, they have no reason to announce that until the game begins, right? Until it's time to announce it, until they have to announce inactives an hour and a half before the game or whatever it might be. I don't think Derek Carr will be inactive, but the Saints could use their emergency third quarterback rule for the first time this year with Jake Luton, right? Putting him as the emergency third quarterback and having Derek Carr as the backup, or maybe vice versa, but I think that would probably be most likely. There would be a situation in which, similar to what we saw with Jameis Winston last year, if they did that, he's healthy enough to be the emergency quarterback, not healthy enough to go out on the field just yet. But the good news around all of this, whether Derek Carr plays this weekend or not, is that it's very unlikely you're going to see Derek Carr miss more than one game, barring some kind of setback. Very unlikely that you'll see Derek Carr missing more than one game with this injury. So can Derek Carr go out there and play is still a main question, but should he might be the biggest question of the week. All right, coming up next, we're going to be taking a look at whether or not the New Orleans Saints can win on offense without Derek Carr, with Jameis Winston, however it is that they go about it, and why in either case, this offense needs to open up and let it rip. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with this In Case You Missed It episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. You trust DoorDash to bring you your favorite meals from your favorite restaurants. Well, now you can also trust them to bring you everything that you need from the grocery store as well. Yeah, I know how it be sometimes for a grocery sitting on that list for a long time, haven't been able to check it off yet. Don't worry about it. Let DoorDash go out there and check off that box for you, because with DoorDash, you can get thousands of grocery stores to choose from, including the best ones in your neighborhood, so you can continue to support the local economy with each and every dollar. And you're going to get 50% off of your first DoorDash order of up to a $20 value when you use the code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off, up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app from the App Store and use code LOCKEDONNFL. One more time, don't forget, that's LOCKEDONNFL, 50% off your first order at DoorDash. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Still waiting to get those New Orleans Saints Tampa Bay Buccaneers tickets for their second home game of the season. No sweat. You can go ahead and grab them from Game Time, and you can be a Game Time decision if you need to be with the Game Time app. It's that easy. They've got deals all the way down to the day of the game. Whether it is a game that you're looking for, same thing goes for concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is that you want to check out, all your favorite events right there on the Game Time app. So if you're looking to grab those tickets for Saints and Bucs, head over, download Game Time today. And if you haven't used Game Time before, Here, I'm going to help you out. You're going to take all that guesswork out of buying. You can be able to see where your tickets are before you buy them, all of that stuff with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first order. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first order. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Our In Case You Missed It episode, getting you caught up with all of the biggest takes throughout the week. Got 5 for you every single Saturday to get you ready for that Sunday, or, well, not anymore this season, Monday. I was going to say the Monday game. But we'll continue to do that even with the Thursday night games and everything too. But some of the biggest takes might be reactions as opposed to preview stuff. Today, it's a lot of preview stuff, including why the New Orleans Saints, this is my unpopular opinion and unpopular take of the week, why the New Orleans Saints should simply let it rip on offense. Appreciate all the everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Look, the New Orleans Saints are a team that have struggled to get started on offense. But I want you to think about something for me. Remember when you were a kid and, or maybe you are a kid now, or maybe you're like me and you're just a big grown kid. And you would light a bottle rocket, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, whatever. You would try to light a bottle rocket, and sometimes the wick didn't take, and so you'd have to go back and try to light it again. And sometimes people would tell you like, hey, don't try to light it again, like let it go, it's a dud or whatever. And then sometimes you had those duds where you lit the fuse and then nothing happened. You went and like stomped it out or whatever it might be. Well, the analogy that I keep coming back to is that on that second light, when you would go back to that bottle rocket, right? And you're like, no, it's okay. It just like, it didn't catch. It's a thick green wick. Like it happens all the time. So you go out there and then you light it again, and then you light it and then the fuse picks up and then it goes, right? Like it does what it would usually do. That's the way that I look at this New Orleans Saints offense. This New Orleans Saints offense, 3 games in a row, has not had the wick take so far. And the only way to go out there and get the wick to take is to put it to fire. It's to light it. It's not go up there and with flint and stone and try to, throw some sparks on it. It's not go up there. Maybe you had the punk, right? You can use one of those as well. But you had to go up there and you had to light it. And that's what I think this New Orleans Saints offense needs to do. This New Orleans Saints offense needs to get going. And the way to get going is not going to be easing into it. It's not flint and stone at a wick until it takes. No, it's put the fire up to it, right? Light it. Get it going. Like that's the way that I look at what this New Orleans Saints offense would benefit from doing. I get that the offensive line is struggling. I know that. But what did we talk about with the offensive line? Put the feet to the fire. I think you have to continue to do that on offense. This isn't just about the offensive line anymore. Is the offensive line an important part of it? Is the offensive line a pivotal and integral part of the success to the New Orleans Saints offense? Yes, of course. That goes for the other 31 teams around the NFL and the mini college teams, the mini high school teams, the mini pro-am teams that are also playing in the spring leagues. If you don't have an offensive line, you're not going to be able to get going on offense. And to a certain extent, you have to accept when you don't have a good offensive line. But for right now, the New Orleans Saints, through 3 games, okay? Just 3 games. They still have the ability to go out there and let it rip, not ease into it. I don't think that easing into anything is going to get you anywhere if you're the New Orleans Saints right now. Not in a divisional matchup that we could be looking back at week 17 saying, well, if only they would have won that game week 4. How many times has that happened with this New Orleans Saints team over the course of the past 2 years? And how many times has that been the reason that they've missed the playoffs over the last 2 years? And I understand. I know I'm in the minority in this decision, and I'm in the minority in this take, that they should go out there and just let it rip. Everybody says, nope, if it's going to be Jameis, you have to be afraid of the interceptions. If it's going to be Derek Carr, you have to be afraid of the offensive line. So what are we doing here? If you're going to go out there, like if the expectation is that this team is going to go out there and play scared, then don't play. Don't play. If you're going to play scared, don't play. Like you can't be that team. The Chicago Bears go out there every weekend and play like they're going to win a football game. And we all know that they're not going to. We all know that they're going to lose their football games. We know what's going to happen there. That's the first overall selection, very likely, in the New Orleans or in the NFL draft next year. And what are they going to do every single week? Go out there and play scared? No, they're going to go out there and try to play to their identity. This New Orleans Saints team has built an identity as a perimeter passing team, a team with an elite passing attack that they just haven't been able to get off the ground just yet. A lot of that has to do with the protection up front. Fix it. Fix it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't go out there and play scared. Get it done. And I think that's what this New Orleans Saints team wants to do. This isn't just me calling on the New Orleans Saints to do something. Ain't nobody listening to me in that way. No. But I think that that's what this New Orleans Saints team wants to do. And I agree that that's what this New Orleans Saints team should go out there and do. Not play scared, not play with their tail between their legs. Instead, they should go out there and let it rip. I don't care if it's Jameis. I don't care if it's Derek under center. Does not matter. Go out there and let it rip. Build that identity and get a statement win in a game that no one expects you to make a statement in. That's how you make a statement. And that's what I think the New Orleans Saints can do. But they can't do it playing scared. They can't do it afraid of their offensive line. They can't do it afraid of Jameis Winston. They can't do it afraid of turnovers. They can't do it afraid of a defensive line. You have to go out there and play. You have to go out there and be who you are. So go out there and be who you are if you're the New Orleans Saints this weekend. Now let's take a look at whether or not the New Orleans Saints, that by the way, was a take from Thursday night's live show. I want to go all the way back now to the Monday post-game, post-cast live show that I did from Lambeau. Can the New Orleans Saints win without Derek Carr? And I started to kind of lean into this a little bit earlier, but and it's no surprise, but I do think that the Saints can win without Derek Carr. I think that they can win with Jameis Winston under center. I think that this team could win with Taysom Hill under center against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team if they needed to. But I love that it could be Jameis Winston going up against his former team, getting a real opportunity to finally kind of have that revenge game that he deserves. Right? He had one shot at it earlier on in 2 years ago. Started off great, but then they still got the win. The Saints did. The Trevor Siemian coming in, but it was a season-ending injury for Jameis Winston. Hard to be happy about that if you're Jameis. Okay, we have to acknowledge that. Like, that was a tough game. That was a tough situation. Then the next time he goes out there, he's playing already with broken vertebra or breaks in his back and all that stuff. All the way back from week 1. We're talking about a week 2 game at that point. Yeah, that was tough. Okay. 4 interceptions in that game, 5 total turnovers for the entire offense. Not a great game. Not a great opportunity for them. This great opportunity should be a great game for Jameis Winston. You have a guy that is, if he's the starter, you have a guy that has a lot of communication and a lot of chemistry with all the guys on offense, including each of those receivers, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, which we've actually never seen Jameis Winston get the opportunity to throw to Rashid Shaheed, by the way. Get Alvin Kamara back this weekend. You've got Kendre Miller now. This will be our first time getting a real look at what that duo can be. I know Jamal Williams is still on injured reserve. That's unfortunate, but eventually you'll add him back. But this is still a very good collection of weapons. We didn't even mention the tight ends, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, about how they need to be more involved in this game. And actually, we'll talk about it now. They need to be more involved in this game. There you go. Attack the middle of the field. That's something that Jameis did pretty well. I think it was 9 of his 16 throws up to the middle of the field. 6 of 6 in the short area up in the middle of the field against against the Green Bay Packers. Bring all that back in. Bring all that back in to this game. Tight ends, taking the shots down the field, getting the ball moving. I think that this is a team that can win with Jameis Winston. And it's not that you're winning in spite of Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston can lead this team to a win against a familiar opponent, a defense that he knows very well, having all of those weapons around him, in a scheme and in a system that he knows, having the hometown crowd, being in a system and running a system in a scheme that he's won with before, all of those things. And against the defense that he has found success against before as well. I think that the Saints can absolutely win, whether it's Derek Carr or Jameis Winston under center this weekend against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My prediction doesn't change one way or another. Coming up next, and as we wrap up, we're going to be taking a look at how the New Orleans Saints defense is looking for a bounce back. And it's not just me saying that they're looking for a bounce back. They are looking for a bounce back. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you the best fantasy football advice each and every week all season long. So whether you're looking to get ready for your daily fantasy draft or you're scouring that free agent pool, we're going to be giving you the players that are a guaranteed fit for your roster every single week. So let's take a look at who Vinny has selected as this week's eBay's guaranteed fit fantasy pick of the week. Let's take a look at Broncos running back Javonte Williams. Now, I know that the Broncos have struggled. They just surrendered 70 points to the Miami Dolphins. Sean not having a good time over there. But look, he's gotten a healthy 48 opportunities in the first 3 games, but so far has only picked up 180 scrimmage yards. So he hasn't gotten rolling yet. No touchdowns, anything like that with the team's 0-3 start. But I would expect that volume to finally convert into true fantasy production as Williams and Denver get a whittling Bears defense in Chicago in week 4. Big time matchup for them. The Bears have given up plenty of overall yardage and scoring juice to backs through the first 3 weeks of the season, and Williams will be just the latest to take advantage of or as a runner and outlet receiver against a weak defense. Vinny Iyer of Locked On Fantasy Football and Michelle Majuk are helping you win your fantasy football championships, and eBay Motors knows that a championship team is all about each player being the perfect fit. That includes, and the same goes for your vehicle. With over 122 million parts and accessories for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly, whether you're looking for brake kits, LED lights, if you're looking for a roof rack, bumpers, whatever it is that your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. With eBay's guaranteed fit, it is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive over at ebaymotors.com. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with our last 2 biggest takes of the week. We're going to go back to Friday's morning episode here. So yesterday morning's episode about the defense looking for a bounce back in this game. Appreciate you as always. All your everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Saints Insider program if you're looking for film studies, exclusive conversations, one-on-one stuff throughout games, all of that. Head over to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Saints if you want to try it out. 14 days free, and then just $4.99 a month after that. Helps to support the show, and hopefully I'm giving you back exactly some good content in the meanwhile to make it all worth your while. But it's a great way to support the show as well. All right, so let's take a look now at this bounce back that the New Orleans Saints defense is looking for. So look, the Saints played an outstanding 11 quarters of football, allowing just 1 touchdown over that stretch of quarters. But then at the end of the game against the Green Bay Packers in that 4th quarter, it wasn't all the defense. The offense couldn't stay on the field. Special teams missed the opportunity to add 3 points there. There was a decision that made, that Dennis Allen made to not kick a field goal that would have given them an additional 3 points or a chance at an additional 3 points, all of that. And so they took a false start penalty and then punted the football. So you saw a lot of that sort of like conservatism creep right back into this New Orleans Saints team. So it happened all across the board. But this New Orleans Saints defense feels that it shoulders a good bit of the burden. And I'm not just saying that, I'm telling you what they have told me, right? When I've talked to coaches, when I've talked to players, they feel like they share a big part or shoulder a big part of that burden, that they let up 2 touchdowns, the 2-point conversion, as well as, of course, the field goal. And remember, one of those touchdowns came on a 4th and 2 and an uncharacteristic play to where Demario Davis missed a tackle on a one-on-one situation against Jordan Love. And he didn't have any support behind him, but he's also a guy that usually makes that play. So there were just a lot of those uncharacteristic things that happen. And I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've spoken to some people that are high up within that defense. And I looked at all the film. We did a full 4th quarter defense film breakdown over for the Locked On Saints Insiders. And one of the things that we found was that in some cases, you just saw the chess match and the Green Bay Packers get the better of the chess match. The Saints call cover 2 or call a middle of the field open defense, whether it's a cover 2 or a cover 4. And the Green Bay Packers happen to have a post route that sits in the middle of the field on that play call. I mean, just good play calls against otherwise good defensive play calls. So that's probably what you saw Dennis Allen mention, as there were some of those play calls that he would have liked back. But there was also situations where the Green Bay Packers just made good adjustments and executed on offense better than the New Orleans Saints executed on defense. And we've talked about this over and over again. The game of football comes down to moments. And when you hand a team 67 yards on back-to-back pass interference penalties, which, do I agree with the pass interference penalties? No. But were they called? Yes. Did the Green Bay Packers get 67 yards out of them? Yes. Do the New Orleans Saints know that they're going to get flagged for playing physically downfield? Yes. So how do you adjust to that? At what point do you say, all right, let's not take these penalties? 4th quarter might be a good time for that. So I think you're looking at a New Orleans Saints defense that is angry. There's another word for it. I'm not going to use it, but they're angry. They're fricked off, right? Like they don't want to have that be their standing reputation. And so now they're going up against an offense that they know, an offense that they know very well how to frustrate, between Mike Evans throwing punches and the offensive line having its meltdowns and Baker Mayfield being Baker Mayfield. They know how to frustrate this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, and they're going to look to do that. And I think one of the big things that I look at in this game is that defensive bounce back. There's a lot of attention going to who's going to play quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. But who's going to keep points off the board becomes just as important, especially if that New Orleans Saints offense continues to struggle, as we've seen them do all season long. So that defense is looking for a bounce back game, not because they're looking to bounce back from poor performance over the course of the entire season. No, they're motivated by the single quarter where they struggled against the Green Bay Packers offense and effectively contributed to, not entirely all their responsibility, but contributed to that loss of giving up a 17-0 lead going into the fourth quarter, 17-3 with 8 minutes left. This New Orleans Saints team and defense is looking for a big time bounce back. And unfortunately for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they might be the punching bags that the New Orleans Saints take all of that frustration out on. All right, let's wrap up today with taking a look at, and you knew we were going to get to it, going all the way back to Tuesday's episode, the New Orleans Saints offensive line struggles might go beyond the on-field personnel and talent. Is it really possible that the New Orleans Saints offensive line as a whole, all of that talent, first round at left tackle, first rounder at right tackle, first rounder at right guard, not this weekend because he had the concussion and so he's out, but Cesar Ruiz is progressing through the concussion protocol. But even if we take him out, first rounder at left guard, because that's where Andres Pete will now plug in, second rounder, top 50 selection at center, and then you have a UDFA in James Hurst, but a UDFA that has held jobs over many first round picks, has taken jobs from first round picks just this season, all of that. So a lot of talent on this offensive line. Does it make sense that all of that talent is all of a sudden regressing all at the same time? And I know Trevor Penning's a specific situation there to where it's not him regressing. In fact, we've actually seen him progress throughout those first three games or throughout the first three games. So is it possible that talent everywhere else in the offensive line is just regressing at exactly the same time? It seems a little unlikely to me. So at what point is it okay to start asking questions about coaching? At what point is it okay to start asking questions about technique? At what point is it okay to start asking questions about what the plan is when it comes to protecting up front? That time is now. It's okay to ask that question. The answer could be no. The answer could be it's not a coaching thing. The answer could be it's not a technique thing, and that it is entirely because of execution and talent on the offensive line, or a regression in talent on the offensive line. But we don't know that right now. So this is a real important week. Look, this is a tough Tampa Bay front, a tough Tampa Bay interior defensive line in particular. Vita Vea currently questionable going into this game. Expect him to play. I expect him to play. We'll see though. But this New Orleans Saints offensive line has a real opportunity to say, hey, we just had a little bit of a wake-up call last week. So just like the defense is looking to bounce back, the offensive line, while the defense is looking to bounce back off of a quarter, the offensive line is looking to bounce back off of 12 quarters. 12 sacks already let up this season, several hits on the quarterback. It has been an unacceptable product in the trenches, offensive trenches for the New Orleans Saints so far. Can they get that right? Can they get that fixed this week? And I don't think that is truly solely the responsibility of the players. I think Doug Marrone, I think Jari Evans is, a guy that has a ton of knowledge and that can help this offensive line continue to produce. I think Dennis Allen, I think everybody has some ownership in making sure that this offensive line finally takes the steps forward that towards being the offensive line that we expected them to be this year. There's not any reason for this New Orleans Saints offensive line and the talent that they've accumulated on that front to be struggling this badly, this quickly, and not being able to make those adjustments. Now, they've already struggled this badly. They've already struggled this quickly. Can you make the adjustments? That's going to be the big thing coming up next for the New Orleans Saints. All right, y'all. That's it for the week, quote unquote, of shows. We'll be right back with you after the New Orleans Saints beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday. I am bullish that this New Orleans Saints team will win this weekend. I was against Carolina. It worked out. We'll see what happens against Tampa. But I do think the Saints can win this game, go up 2-0 over the division, get an early lead against the Bucs in their series, all of that. So I'm all about the Saints winning this game this weekend, and we'll be here, win or loss, after the game to break it all down live from the Superdome. I appreciate you as always, y'all, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day, for making us a part of your day, part of your routine, and of course for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi, and if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.